In the previous lesson, we introduced you to HTML tags. We saw that tags have an opening and a closing, content that's nested between those tags. So this content between the tags, this is now considered an element because it's got content in here, and anything within here is part of that element. So that HTML parent element has several other tags nested within it. So it's got some children in here, so it's got the head, it's got the body, and this is the default structure of any HTML page. And now let's add some more specifics into the content. So this is actually not going to be something that gets consumed by the user, but this is actually meant to help the browser better understand what we want to output and what type of content it can actually be expecting. So typically within a web page, you need to add doc type. And doc type helps specify what type of document it is. Now I know that we know that it's an HTML document by that extension, but also doc type can specify what version of HTML the browser should be expecting when it's rendering this out. And when we specify doc type HTML, this is the latest HTML5 document type. So basically this is just a hidden message to the browser when it reads the file to say, okay, I know what I should be expecting here. I'm expecting HTML5 content. So next we're going to go into the head section, and a lot of times you're going to see that you've got this type of tree structure where you've got this indent, where you've got nested tags are indented between the parent tags. And so this is done for readability. So whenever we've got a bunch of content here where we're opening and closing the tags, we want to nest that content in here. And this is, again, for readability, makes it a lot more readable and easier to digest, especially if you've got a lot of HTML code so that you can quickly look it over and say, okay, well, this is the head, here's the open, here's the close. So we've got it on that same kind of line here, so we know that any one of these are opening and closing. These are along the same lines that we can expect a closing body when we've got the opening body on that line. So going back into the head, there's also some meta information that I did mention. And meta information, again, helps the browser better understand what to expect, what type of output to expect. So we know that can be different character sets. So because HTML code is universal, we know that sometimes we're not writing English characters, and this is where you can specify what type of character set the web page should be expecting on the output. So meta information, we can also include things like a page description, we can include keywords, author, and so on. So you'll see that some of this stuff commonly gets included within web pages when we look at this one over here. So we've got our meta character set, UTF-8. It's also specifying a viewport. So this is for mobile devices to make your web page more flexible and responsive on different sizes. We also see that we've got all of these meta properties. So all of this information, this is meta information to help with social media tracking. So when we're sharing the page and Facebook or Twitter sees the web page, they can pull out this information, the contents of the page, really easily. So that's why all of this stuff is included. So it knows it looks like quite a lot of information, but essentially it's repetitive, and it's essentially helping guide along any applications that might be looking at your web page. And we also see that we're linking out to external files, some source files, and so on. And that's the bulk of what's contained within most of the head of any web page. And we also see one more here where we've got title. And so title is another thing that's really important to include within every website. So notice up here in the top left-hand corner, my tab just has the file name. And it's doing that because we actually haven't set a title. So I'm going to give it a title of Learn HTML, and we're going to close that off and save it. And now when I refresh it, watch what happens up here in the tab. We see that now we've got Learn HTML. So although I know I said that the head contents, it's not going to be visible by the user, The title is the only exception here because the title is also used within the meta information. That's why it sits in the head, and that's why we are able to see it because it's a title. You can also see it when search engines are indexing your file. A lot of times they're going to set it up and use that title in order to represent that page. So for SEO purposes, title is also really, really important. Those of you that aren't familiar with SEO, SEO is search engine optimization, and essentially this is the practice of trying to get your web pages to rank better in search engines. So title, super important for SEO. Make sure that your title is meaningful, makes sense with the rest of the content of your web page. Don't just name the title something generic. Make sure that it's relevant to the content of the web page. And next, we're going to look at body. So essentially, we've already typed out some body content here, and we see that we've got our hello world. So this is what's getting rendered out. So in the next lesson, we're going to jump into content that can get rendered out into the body. So this is going to be that visible content for your users in order for those users to consume that content when they visit your website. And that's where things are going to start getting really interesting because we're actually going to change what's getting output on the page. So that's coming up in the next lesson.